let's get divorced."
My husband solemnly handed me a sheet of paper. I bit my lip, holding back the rising emotions, and looked down. Finally, this day has come. It was all I could do to conceal the smile that almost spilled out involuntarily. I'm Jasmine. I've been married to my husband Stephen for almost 3 years now. We met at work. It all started when he joined the company as a new employee and I was assigned as his trainer. He wasn't great at work, but he was obedient and knew how to seek affection, so even after I finished training him and he moved to a different department, I still liked him. Before I knew it, I was being invited out more often after work. I gave in to his persuasion and started dating him. At that time, I was 27 years old. I hesitated to date someone younger because I wanted to get married early. But he seemed eager to marry soon. And before I knew it, our relationship progressed, and we were married a year later. I thought it might be too soon, but considering the marriage rush around us and my desire to have children by age 30, I thought, well, why not? I thought we'd be a great family because he's affectionate like a big puppy, and I'm caring, being the oldest of 3 siblings. I switched to a job with good benefits and regular hours just in case we had children, to be ready whenever children came along. Before we knew it, the honeymoon phase had passed and I was almost 31. But we didn't have any children, because I regretted this marriage. Children would become a burden in the event of divorce.
"I'm home."
After finishing his night shift, Stephen immediately took off everything from his socks to his shirt at the entrance, tossed his bag, and headed straight to the living room. Really? Wash your hands and tidy up your things before coming here.
"But it's so hot."
With just his underwear on, Stephen lowered the air conditioner temperature and sat comfortably in front of the fan. Since there's no helping it, I set the prepared meal on the table and headed to the entrance. When I returned after collecting the discarded clothes, Stephen had already started eating. We promised to eat together, remember?
"I smelled something delicious, so..."
With a satisfied expression, he chewed on the fried chicken while I sighed and joined him at the table. After finishing the meal without bothering to clean up, he took a bath and stayed up late playing games. Of course, in the morning I had to wake him up several times. He's like a grade schooler. Now I feel like a grade schooler would be more independent. He's too childish. At work, even if he's not good at his job, he's serious and consults me properly when he doesn't understand something, so there's no problem. But at home, he doesn't do anything. He just relies on me completely. It feels more like being his mom than his wife. His cute personality from when we dated has turned negative since we got married, and now it's just stressful every day. Normal people might wonder why I didn't realize this when we were dating. How could I have known he'd be so clueless and immature? I never imagined having kids with someone who can't do anything more than a child. But my husband's mom doesn't seem to mind. No children yet? My mother-in-law, carrying my husband's favorite snacks, storms our home. I'm sorry, I've been busy with work. This is not the time to be so leisurely. You're old enough, so quit your job and work harder. I want children too, mother-in-law. But I can't raise a child with your son. Even though I almost blurt out my true feelings, I endure because I don't want to stoop to her level. That's why I would have preferred a younger bride. Yeah, that's right. My father-in-law and my 2 sisters-in-law congratulated me, but you were the only one who glared at me.
Well, Mom, she's trying her best.
You're just too kind. Hey, clean up those dishes with those sad-looking leaves. I'll order your favorite pizza for today.
Hey, Mom's ordering pizza for us.
Mother-in-law brimming with malice and a husband who innocently rejoices. This is how my husband, spoiled by his mother, turned out. My mother-in-law seems to have spoiled and pampered my husband, who is her only son, excessively. As a result, my father-in-law and sisters-in-law seemed to be neglected. If I have a son with my husband, I fear my mother-in-law will spoil him excessively, taking him away from me. This is one of the reasons why I don't want to have a children. To be honest, I want a divorce. But if I use "I'm tired of taking care of my husband" as a reason, I might end up being seen as irresponsible and selfish, having to pay alimony. I even hope my husband would cheat on me, but that's not happening either. He seems to genuinely love me. While that sounds nice, just because he loves me doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants. Besides, it's comfortable for him here in this house where I do everything, so he probably doesn't want to go anywhere else. I don't particularly hate my husband, nor do I want to hurt him, so I've been unable to bring myself to divorce him. I just don't see any hope for a future with him. However, my dissatisfaction and stress have been piling up, on the verge of exploding.
Hey, do I have to join in on your dad's 60th birthday celebration?
One night after dinner, my husband, fiddling with his phone on the sofa, asked me in a cajoling tone. Why? You said you would join.
I've been busy with work lately and I'm tired, you know?
I understand that you're tired. But my sister-in-law and my brother are coming from far away, and even I attended your mother's 60th birthday celebration last year. Remember?
Yeah, but...
The hesitant tone of my husband pierced through to the real reason. Is there some event coming up in your smartphone game?
Yes. By participating in this event, you can get rare items.
My husband's face lit up and he enthusiastically began talking about the importance of this event. I don't know about the game, but he wants to cancel his father-in-law's celebration for such a thing. I was trembling with anger at the thought. Which is more important, the game or my father's 60th birthday celebration? I've supported you a lot since we got married, and even that big TV you're always watching was a gift for my father for our new home. My husband seemed to realize, for the first time, that I was genuinely annoyed, as his eyes darted around nervously. He hurriedly went to take a bath and went to bed as if he was running away. Perhaps he realized how unreasonable he was being. I foolishly hoped for it, but I was wrong. Are you trying to force my tired son to go to your parents' house? Don't be selfish and drag him around. The next day I received an angry call from my mother-in-law. As my mother-in-law yelled at me with her loud voice, I noticed that my love for my husband, which had almost disappeared, and my energy were slowly disappearing too. Oh, it's over. I want to break up. Now, let's split up. Child rearing will eventually end, but raising my husband has no end in sight. Moreover, it's impossible to raise my husband with my mother-in-law getting in the way. The thought of spending my life taking care of this man gives me chills. I don't want to sacrifice any more of my life for such a man. I'll be free. Just as I made up my mind, a devil-like angel appeared before me.
Do you remember Samantha? The one who joined the company 2 years after me? She's been assigned to my department now.
My husband, who usually only talks about games, unusually brought up a topic about work with me. Samantha. I remember her. She's practically a celebrity. Beautiful and clever like an idol and employee. Thinking back to her when she was my junior, I suddenly had an idea. That's right, I'll ask for help from Samantha. Suddenly, it felt like a light had appeared at the end of a tunnel in front of me. From that day on, I worked with all my might to turn my husband into a good man, at least in appearance. For him who can't even choose his own clothes, I prepared stylish suits and crisply ironed shirts every day. When bonuses came, I splurged and bought him a brand name watch. Every morning I put together fancy lunches that looked like they were crafted with love by a devoted wife for everyone to see. I instructed him to bring home any work he couldn't handle, and I took care of it for him. I increased his pocket money to emphasize his financial freedom. Originally, my husband had a good face and was tall. In no time, he became the perfect loving husband and capable boss. Gradually, even his actions changed in response to becoming such a wonderful man. He, who used to love staying at home, started coming home late and ignoring me. And 6 months later, my husband who handed me divorce papers was standing in front of me. Of course, next to him was Samantha, and my overprotective mother-in-law had come along too. And do you like her? I tremble as I suppress the urge to laugh with joy. My husband solemnly nods, perhaps misunderstanding my silence.
I'm sorry, but you're strong, so you don't need me, right? She's fragile and weak. She can't live without my support.
His foolish romantic declaration makes me want to burst out laughing. It's amazing that Samantha could turn such a spoiled husband into a knightly handsome man. She looks at me with apologetic moist eyes. I'm sorry for hurting you, Jasmine, but please forgive me. I found true love. As Samantha continues, my mother-in-law interjects. There's no need for you as the daughter-in-law to apologize like this. If a young and beautiful girl becomes my son's wife, our family would gladly welcome her. So please, let's part ways. Since it would seem suspicious if it's just the two of them, I've come along. The three of them, like characters in a cheesy drama, revel in portraying me as the unlikable wife. It sends a shiver down my spine, but for now I'll play along. As much as it pains me, I understand. They make a perfect match. But I won't back down. I'll still be taking alimony. Oh, goodness. You can only think about money, can't you?
Come on, Mom. Living alone as a woman must be tough, right? I'll pay the alimony. And of course, I'll take care of her, too.
Stephen. His enamored gaze at her and the proud look of my mother-in-law. My husband shining brighter than ever in our married life. Everything's falling into place, and finally I can divorce. Everyone's happy. It's a win-win situation. What a perfect ending it seems to be. I decided to claim alimony, aside from the standard division of shared property, and stamped the divorce papers. A week later, it seemed my ex-husband and his new partner got married. I wondered if it was alright for them to marry so soon after the divorce, but it seems they wanted to prove their bond on Valentine's Day, the day of love. It's like watching a comedy, but it works well for me too. Before they wake up from their dream, I'll make my escape. 2 years have passed since then. My transfer request was approved, and now I work from a city just a plane ride away from where my ex-husband and I used to live. I've picked up hobbies I abandoned during my marriage, and even found some lovely new acquaintances there. A man who divorced for similar reasons as I did. At first, we just exchanged complaints, but as we spent time together, we grew attracted to each other. Unlike my ex-husband, he can take care of himself and handle household chores. Above all, he is good at pampering me, and even I, who had never been good at relying on anyone, have become completely attached to him. Even at a time like this, my mother-in-law reaches out to me. My son got divorced. Oh, it happened later than I thought. You knew that woman was a little devil, didn't you? What are you talking about? I pretended not to understand. Samantha was popular among male employees as a beautiful and considerate woman. Samantha was famous among female employees for loving to steal other people's boyfriends. I vividly remembered how she quickly stole my colleague's boyfriend soon after joining the company. Rumors spread about her low-quality man-sampling, and sensible male colleagues started to keep their distance. But it seems my ex-husband didn't know about it. So I ended up crafting him into a charming stranger's husband who she'd want to snatch away. The result was even better than I imagined. That woman, always selfishly demanding things like wanting a lavish wedding or insisting on brand name engagement rings. Despite us putting up the money, she never listened to me, never took care of my son. And to top it all off, she cheated. Now that sounds tough. I knew all about her misdeeds that my mother-in-law listed out. I heard various stories about her from her superiors, who were my former colleagues. I didn't explain the reason for the divorce to anyone, but if my ex-husband remarries another woman within the next week, everyone will understand the situation. People with common sense starting distancing themselves from my ex-husband and her. Even the company couldn't trust important tasks to such unfaithful and thoughtless individuals. They were like sitting on a bed of nails in the workplace. Their happy newlywed life lasted only for the first month. My ex-husband, who was being relied on for the first time, got tired of her incredibly selfish behavior. Even he must have been surprised when her fake charm wore off, revealing her immature and sloppy personality. A man who can't do anything without his wife's help, a foolish man who spends money only on games without any sense of planning, and that wicked woman. My husband indulges in snacks and games in a dirty room while his wife, ignoring him, goes out and comes home late. Their life collapsed in no time within this self-defeating scenario. Since my son couldn't say it, I kicked her out. Honestly, how did she grow up so tactless? My former mother-in-law is fuming on the other end of the phone. Your son also cheated. You praised him for it, didn't you? When I made a sarcastic comment, that's because you lack initiative. Even my ex-mother-in-law is aware that she's been abandoned by her rational husband and daughters. They're now separated and heading for a divorce. I learned this from my ex-father-in-law himself, who apologized to me and informed me after the divorce. What business do you have with such an incompetent ex-daughter-in-law? You wouldn't dare suggest he comes back, would you? The one who drove your son to divorce again without telling him anything about that wicked woman? You're probably going to tell him to come back and take responsibility for that. I sensed my ex-mother-in-law's intentions, so I took the initiative. You're not that shameless, are you? Don't you dare insult me like that. Who would rely on a woman like you? If it were my son, he'd find a cuter and more obedient girl. Seems like I hit a nerve. Seems like my ex-mother-in-law didn't like being hit on the nose with the truth, as she hung up the phone rather abruptly. With her pride as high as ever, she probably won't be contacting me for a while. I can't imagine any normal woman being attracted to my ex-husband. With his belly full of flab from neglecting his health, and his complexion pale from late-night gaming, it's no wonder. Every so often I get messages from my ex-husband like, "Come over and cook for me," or, "I still love you the most after all." Meanwhile, that wicked woman only messaged me saying, "Please pay compensation and I'll return your husband." They're both childish and self-centered, so in a way they're a perfect match. Well, being relied upon by someone is a happy thing, though. Now that I've found someone I can rely on, I can understand my ex-husband's feelings a little bit. But a marriage can't work without equality. Breaking up was truly the best decision. It feels like a waste, those 3 years I spent enduring and the time and effort I put into the divorce. But I'm grateful to my ex-husband for making me realize what truly matters in married life. I glance at the man who will be my new husband. With him, I can build a wonderful family. And one day, we'll be able to make our future child happy. Because I met someone like him.
At our century-old family-owned restaurant, my mother-in-law splurged, expecting me to pay the $30,000 bill. Her reaction to my response was priceless.
I am Natalie Simpson, and I'm 36 years old. The profession I work in every day, wearing a suit, is... Thank you very much for patronizing us this time. We look forward to your next visit. I offer a polite nod and bid farewell to the customers. I am the young manager of the restaurant. Our family owns and operates a historic restaurant that has been serving customers for over 100 years. My father works as a chef, and my mother serves as the head manager. I decided to follow in my mother's footsteps and work at this restaurant right after graduating from college. I believe that the reason our restaurant has been able to continue for 100 years is because of the reputation for excellent service provided by the manager and the staff, in addition to the delicious food. My mother began to experience some health problems after turning 60. Although she usually rests, on good days she comes to the restaurant, and my husband handles everything at this restaurant. I met my husband in the restaurant business 10 years ago. At that time, when the management of the restaurant was beginning to falter, my husband entered as a management consultant. My dad, who's really good at his craft, had a hard time figuring out business plans. He was slow to adopt strategies like using the internet to attract customers. It's my current husband who really improved the old-fashioned management. Thanks to my husband's hard work, a few months later, The restaurant became stable, and even more customers started coming compared to before. We started dating when we were in the roles of consultant and manager. It was the day our contract ended when my husband asked me, "Would you consider dating with marriage in mind?" That's how it all started. After that, my husband quit his consulting job and has been supporting the management of the inn as an executive in place of my father. My husband's parents live about an hour away by train. My father-in-law is a serious person who retired last year after working at a company for 40 years. My mother-in-law is a homemaker. My mother-in-law actively participates in the local community and seems to have a wide circle of friends. It seemed like she was enjoying herself every day. But according to my husband, my mother-in-law has always had a flaw. She's a spendthrift. She has a weakness for luxury clothing and cosmetics and often can't resist buying them. Sometimes she even gets scolded by my father-in-law for going overboard. I was a little worried about my mother-in-law before we got married, but I thought it would only be a few times a year that I would have to deal with her. Actually, I've been troubled by my mother-in-law for the past 2 years. Since my mother became ill and stopped coming to the restaurant as often, my mother-in-law has been coming to dine at the restaurant more frequently. When she first came, she was with my father-in-law. Because it was the first time, I decided not to accept payment, thinking they were my husband's parents. My father-in-law insisted on paying, saying, "It's not right like this." But I said, "No need to worry. Please come and visit again." Since they wouldn't visit the restaurant often, I thought if they came once every 6 months, my in-laws would be pleased. So I thought it was fine to treat them to a meal like this. But this idea was too naive. My mother-in-law thoroughly enjoyed herself and began coming once every 2 weeks. "Can we get the set menu? It's not much, but as a thank you, I'll make sure to promote this restaurant to my friends because I have a wide network." And then she started visiting the restaurant once every 2 weeks. The set meal that my mother-in-law orders costs $350. Providing this for free every time was challenging even for the restaurant. But my father said, "Well, it's just part of socializing." So I decided to think the same way. I was hesitant to consult with my husband because I was afraid he might scold me, and I didn't want to worsen the relationship with my mother-in-law. There was another issue. It's my mother-in-law's attitude toward our staff. She started to adopt an intimidating demeanor towards them. "Hey, you there, part-timer. Don't just stand there daydreaming. If you've got free time, clean up around here." Each staff member has their tasks for the day, including time for cleaning and visually checking on each customer to provide necessary care. We're not just idling around with free time. It's troublesome to be arbitrarily scolded by my mother-in-law who knows nothing. "Oh, Mom, there are other customers around, so if you shout at the staff so loudly..." "Humph, what's with you? They're not disciplined as part-timers. I told you, you should be grateful." When I try to share a little opinion with my mother-in-law, it ends up like this. She shouts without caring about the surroundings. One time, "Hey, you over there, my chair cushion is too hard. Bring something softer. Who do you think is paying for all this?" she shouted. "You haven't paid a single cent." I was about to say it out loud, but I swallowed my words at the last moment. When my mother-in-law is at the restaurant, I never get a moment of peace. The staff also feels sorry for themselves on the day my mother-in-law visits, as she makes them work hard. Then, one day, I received a call from the restaurant. "Hello?" "Oh, Mom, it's rare to get a call from you. What's up?" "Natalie, I have a little favor to ask." With my mother-in-law speaking in an eerie sing-song voice, I had a bad feeling. "You see, I have lots of friends, don't I? So I've been telling all my friends about your restaurant, and then everyone says they want to go there." "That's very kind of you. Is this some kind of awakening?" "There will be 10 of us, including me and my friends. Yes, we'll all have the top-notch full-set menu, please." "All right, I understand. I guess it's better if you tell me about the budget, right?" What are you talking about? I said I'm introducing my friends. Huh? So, since I'm inviting them, you understand what that means, right? Inviting? Does that mean another free meal? No. You must be joking. No, wait, Mom. I hurriedly tried to protest to my mother-in-law, but when I speak, it's because there's advertising value, so I want compensation for that. Providing a full set menu that satisfies me is the least you can do. I won't accept anything else. I'm counting on you. With that, my mother-in-law hung up the phone. I was left stunned for a while. Both my staff and I are troubled by my mother-in-law's behavior. If things continue like this, everyone's motivation will plummet. I have to do something. With determination, that night, I decided to discuss my mother-in-law's actions with my husband. I told him everything honestly, from eating for free to her terrible attitude towards the employees. Is that so? That's terrible. I wish I had noticed sooner. My mom has always been a bit selfish, but this is going too far. It might be better to say she's arrogant. Can I take care of this? I have something in mind. Then, the day arrived. My mother-in-law arrived at the restaurant with her friends of the same age, smiling. Welcome, Mom. We warmly welcome your friends as well today. As I guided them to the private room for group customers, I'm worried my daughter-in-law might inconvenience everyone. Please, Natalie, don't embarrass me. Suddenly, my mother-in-law started picking on me in front of everyone. I could only force a smile. Even before the food arrived, my mother-in-law was already noisy. Don't we have some softer cushions? Is this not to your liking? The friend said, No, it's lovely, so please don't worry. But my mother-in-law said, Honestly, don't make my friends feel uncomfortable. She muttered in complaint. Is the food still not here? Natalie, aren't you organizing things properly? I apologize. I'll bring it out quickly, so please wait a little longer. Despite it being shortly after their arrival, she continued in this manner. My mother-in-law continued speaking in a manner that indicated she couldn't be satisfied, unless she found fault with everything she saw. As I listened, nodding along, she didn't stop, this time asking incessantly if the food was ready yet. And that's not all. Just like usual, she started disciplining the staff. She started saying things like, The staff here seem poorly trained, or, If the daughter-in-law isn't responsible, it affects the staff too. Our restaurant's signature courses were highly praised. While my mother-in-law's friends enjoyed the food and complimented it, my mother-in-law alone criticized, saying things like, These dishes look cheap. It's because Natalie has no taste. Or, The staff here are always slow. I should have instructed them to come to the room within 2 seconds when I called. My mother-in-law, who complains about everything, is a complainer no matter how you look at it. While my mother-in-law was being like that, her friends were getting excited about the food, saying things like, Thanks to Natalie, it's so delicious, and happily enjoying their meal. I wonder if my mother-in-law's mood improved because of her friend's attitude. You're my friends, so we need better drinks. Natalie, go get the alcohol from over there, she said. Mom, but that alcohol is... Come on, just do it. You should just silently get it. Drink plenty of this premium wine tonight. This is my daughter-in-law's restaurant, so my daughter-in-law will pay for everything. Is that really okay, Mom? I whispered to my mother-in-law. Huh? I don't know what you're saying, but just hurry up and bring it. Come on, move it. And so the banquet proceeded. Ah, thank you for the feast. Natalie, it's time for us to leave. See us off. Oh, please call a taxi for me. Of course, with your money. Okay, Mom. Today's total comes to $30,000. Will you be paying by cash or card? I informed her. Huh? My tipsy mother-in-law returned to a serious expression in that moment. Yes, I heard that you invited your friends here for free. I understood that you would be the one paying for this. Huh? What do you mean? Do you mean a breakdown of the fees here? If so, then the wine you ordered cost about $3,000 per bottle. Then why should I pay? I'm your husband's mother, you know. It's awfully rude to think that you can demand money from me. We're not demanding any money from you. We, as professional chefs, have provided our customers with the finest hospitality through professional service. Our staff has delivered service that more than adequately matches the price. My mother-in-law's face turned red as she trembled. How despicable of this daughter-in-law! Do you even realize how much I've done for this shop all this time? This is repaying kindness with malice. With that, she began to shout. Anyway, you just need to do as I say. It would be rude to inconvenience my friends any further, so you won't need a taxi today. Well, everyone, let's head home. As my mother-in-law attempted to leave without paying. Honestly, what are you doing? There stood my father-in-law. You? Why are you here? Our son wanted to talk to me about something, so I came to see if you were really causing such trouble. I politely nodded to my father-in-law. Dad, I apologize for the inconvenience you've gone through to come here. No, Natalie, not at all. So what exactly is going on here? Well, Natalie, because she's been showing gratitude to me on a regular basis, invited me out today, so I brought some friends along, you see. Right, Natalie? My mother-in-law sent me a pleading look, but I chose to ignore her. No, I never mentioned inviting 10 guests free of charge. In addition to the arrangements for 10 guests at the restaurant, there were also many orders for premium wine. Mom actually utilized services worth $30,000 at fair rate. I believe it's only fair for her to cover these expenses. Upon hearing this, my father-in-law's expression turned stern. So were you planning to place such a large order and then push all the payment onto Natalie? My mother-in-law faltered, saying, Yes. I've told you before, haven't I? That I refrained from frequenting this restaurant because it puts pressure on Natalie and everyone. You said you understood me, didn't you? But despite that, it seems you've been coming here every 2 weeks. Well, it's because Natalie asked me to. Stop making excuses. I know you've been lying to me. Do you have no remorse for causing so much trouble to all these people? I'm sorry. Perhaps I got a bit carried away. What are your intentions with the $30,000 spent today? That's... My mother-in-law faltered. As my husband observed this, everyone knows that you, Mom, have been eating for free at this restaurant all this time. Don't you understand that it's been putting pressure on our livelihoods, too? If Natalie pays the $30,000 today, and our life became very difficult, how are you going to take the responsibility? My mother-in-law's shoulders slumped. You're right. Well then, I'm sorry to trouble you, but could you please pay the money? My mother-in-law pleaded with my husband. However, my father-in-law, You don't understand the value of money, so from now on, try working and earning $30,000 to pay it back yourself. Huh? Even if you say that? Actually, the matter has already been settled. Isn't your older brother running a farm in the countryside? When I told him about this story, he said he would straighten you out. So work hard and pay it back with your own effort. With a firm and authoritative tone from my father-in-law, my mother-in-law seemed unable to say anything more. Finally, my father-in-law lowered his head deeply to us. Natalie, and all the employees, I apologize deeply for the tremendous inconvenience caused by my wife. We may not be able to repay immediately, but we will ensure that we take responsibility and repay it to you. I am sorry that I could not pay attention to anything until now, even though it was my mother's doing. My husband also lowered his head to apologize. Afterward, it seems my mother-in-law reluctantly had to part with the luxury brand items she had purchased before. But the money from selling them was far from enough. To earn the remaining money, my mother-in-law apparently stayed over at her brother's farm, working from morning till night every day. Her brother, upon hearing about the incident, seems to be furious, making her work hard every day, unable to afford any luxury. While I can't help but feel a bit sorry for her, it's somewhat amusing to think of my vain mother-in-law doing mundane farm work every day. And about a week after my mother-in-law started working, she called me. I'm truly sorry. I've treated you terribly before. Despite all the lavish treatment you've given me, I got carried away. Just this time. Just this time, please forgive me. If you forgive me, I'll make an effort to get along with you. Right? Isn't that good, Natalie? Ideally, I wanted to get along with you from the beginning. That's right. It's never too late to start now, right? But I find it hard to forgive what you've done up to now. You've been disrespectful, not only to me, but also to the staff. Moreover, this is not just a promise between you and me, but also with my father-in-law and husband. Please take full responsibility and repay the money yourself until the end. With that said, despite my mother-in-law still shouting, I hung up the phone without caring. Just how self-centered can my mother-in-law be? I'm beyond amazed at how shamelessly she called repeatedly. After all the trouble she caused, I have no intention of helping her. Despite the harassment the employees endured from my mother-in-law, they continued to work hard without anyone stopping them. As a gesture of gratitude to these employees, I happily offered them a special treat. People are treasures. I'm truly angry at my mother-in-law for harassing such good people. I sincerely hope she completely changes her ways. The restaurant continued to thrive. Although none of the friends my mother-in-law promoted came, my husband, employees, and I will continue to work hard every day to ensure our customers are satisfied.
My wealthy fiancé's family looked down on me, refusing to let him marry to me, a country person. My parents got angry, and a few days later, chaos ensued.
My name is Nadia. I'm just an ordinary 25-year-old office worker. I live alone away from my parents' house. Although I was born in the countryside, I moved to NYC for work, and now I'm working as an accountant in a small company. I have been dating my boyfriend for a year. His name is Eugene Kirby, and he's 27 years old. Eugene was a salesperson from a client company and occasionally visited my office. At first, we only exchanged greetings, but we found out that we are from the same state and hit it off. He also moved to NYC for work.
How about having a meal together sometime?
That sounds good. Let's go. I started being invited on dates.
Would you mind giving me your contact information?
Sure, gladly. From there, our relationship naturally progressed. And on our first anniversary of dating, he proposed to me. Maybe it's just the right time considering our ages. I liked Eugene, and I thought it would be nice to be with him. There was no reason to refuse. When I replied that I would accept the proposal, Eugene began to tell me his personal story.
Actually, I run my own paper manufacturing company.
Is that so?
That's why I plan to quit my current job and eventually return to my hometown. It's called Kirby Paper. Haven't you heard of it?
I know it. It's a big company, isn't it?
Right? There's hardly anyone in the state who doesn't know about it. They even have TV commercials.
I never would have guessed that Eugene's family owned Kirby Papers. Kirby Papers is a well-known company in the state, ranking in the top 10 in terms of revenue. The current president is indeed a second-generation owner, so I wonder if Eugene might become the third? That's impressive. So Eugene, you're a wealthy heir?
Well, something like that. Nadia, you're lucky, huh? Lucky to be chosen by me.
I chuckled a little at his snide attitude. I don't remember Eugene being the kind of person who talks like this. And if he's planning to quit his job and return to his hometown, why didn't he talk about it before proposing? It was the first time I felt uneasy about Eugene. What will happen to my job if we get married? I remember telling Eugene that my dream was to gain proper experience as an accountant in a regular company and help my father in the real estate business. Is he really considering all that? I tried to ask, but then I thought that maybe Eugene has something in mind, so I held back. Since he hasn't told me to quit my job right away, maybe returning to his hometown is still a distant plan. I guess we'll talk about it next time. That's what I thought, but Eugene gradually began to change after that day. It might be more accurate to say that his true nature gradually became visible. Eugene's stories started to revolve around boasting about his family.
I've never struggled with money before. The employees at the company always treat me like a prince and call me young master. That's why you can benefit from it too, Nadia.
Even though he said that, I didn't feel happy at all. Instead, I started to feel irritated by Eugene's show-off attitude, always talking about his family. Why did you join your current company before taking over the family business?
Obviously to gain some credentials, as to my reputation. Although I got into that company through my father's connections. Oh, by the way, I bought another car. Well, technically it's my father's, or rather, the company's money.
Until now, Eugene had never shown any signs of arrogance or extravagance. But now it's as if someone else has taken over him and his words sting like thorns. I used to love Eugene for his humility and lack of pretense. I wonder if it's really okay to marry him. I was told nothing about taking over the company or returning to his parents' house, and my disbelief only grew. But having accepted the proposal, I couldn't bring myself to reconsider. About a month after the proposal, I went to visit Eugene's family to introduce myself. Their house was a truly magnificent 3-story mansion, fitting for a successful manufacturer. In the spacious garden, expensive artworks were displayed, and colorful koi fish swam in the pond.
Each of them cost several tens of thousands of dollars. This one won an award domestically.
Eugene boasted, but it didn't really impress me. He owns 6 luxury cars like Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari, all bought with company money. He doesn't need to mention such things. But isn't that a bit strange? Doubt started to creep in. We were led inside and Eugene introduced me to his parents. What do your parents do, Nadia? Eugene's mother suddenly came to pry into my family background. My father works in real estate. But before I could finish, Eugene's father interjected.
Not a respectable job, huh?
He muttered to himself dismissively. How rude to say such a thing to someone you're meeting for the first time. What's wrong with working in real estate? I was taken aback, but I couldn't let the atmosphere sour here. Endure. I just smiled politely to cover it up.
Well, it can't be helped. They're just commoners, like us.
Yes, dear. It's rude to say such things to ordinary people. What are these people saying? I was speechless. It's the kind of talk that implies those of higher social status can't talk to those of lower status. What's even scarier is that there's no malice in their conversation at all. They probably think this is just normal behavior. It felt like I had stumbled into a different dimension, and I felt nauseous. I couldn't imagine getting along with his family at all. Such worries raced through my mind.
By the way, Nadia, you work in accounting, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Then you can work for us when you get married.
His father joined in with the conversation. Nadia, you're being directly scouted by the president. We're counting on you, Nadia. Before I could interject, the conversation kept progressing rapidly. I looked at Eugene in distress, and he was smiling and chatting with his parents. Wait a minute, please. I tried desperately to interject, but no one seemed to listen. The conversation continued, and eventually the day came to an end. Alone with Eugene, I felt I needed to address my concerns about the future, so I confronted him with all the questions that had been on my mind. When are we going back to your hometown?
Right after we get married, so make sure to prepare for it.
Hold on, I haven't agreed to any of this.
But we did talk about going back to my hometown, didn't we?
Yes, but I thought it was something for the distant future. I have no intention of quitting my job right now. The conversation wasn't going smoothly.
Huh? Why not? You'd be happier working at home, wouldn't you? My family's business is bigger than your current company.
But I don't plan on quitting my job immediately.
Even if you say that, it's safer and better to work at my place than at that company. Don't you think?
I didn't like the way he made fun of my company, and I didn't like the way Eugene thought he could get away with anything. It made me lose the desire to marry him. Such feelings grew stronger and stronger. The day after Eugene and I had this conversation, his mother called me personally. Nadia, it seems you won't be able to contribute to our family business. I can't accept just any person as my son's wife. but I don't want to quit my job right now.
A job in accounting is the same anywhere.
I was reprimanded by Eugene's mother in a harsh tone, which made me shrink back.
Anyway, come here this week and explain it to the president properly. Understood?
I hung up the phone feeling overwhelmed. I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling into an irreversible mess. When I visited Eugene's family that weekend, his parents sat with their arms crossed, staring at me.
Eugene, are you sure about her?
We don't need someone uncooperative like her in our family.
Eugene's parents freely expressed their thoughts. Upon hearing this, Eugene said,
Nadia, please, quit your job and come live with us.
He tried to persuade me with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to accept it. I want to keep working at my current job. Please, understand.
Even if you say that, you can't have a married life while staying at NYC.
I understand, but...
Do you really want to get married?
Well... When asked again, I couldn't honestly say yes. Eugene's parents, fed up with my indecision, said,
That's enough. Please, leave.
I was finally kicked out of Eugene's house. For a while after that, I didn't hear from Eugene. I felt relieved that as long as this didn't turn into a bigger issue, I didn't need to get married. Then about 2 weeks later, I received a phone call, and the tone was quite serious.
My parents want to meet. I want you to come over to my place this weekend with your parents, okay? I'm thinking about discussing our future.
I understood. It's off, isn't it? Even though I hesitated about marriage, I still loved you. So when I heard those words, tears overflowed. I thought we could be happy, but things turned out like this. Why did we drift apart so much? What should I have done? Even if I repeatedly ask myself, the answer never comes. It was the end, I thought to myself. I took a vacation and went back to my parents' house for the first time in a while. I had told my parents about being proposed to, but I hadn't told them about what happened afterward. When is the wedding? What about the introduction meeting? Although I was asked, I was evasive with my answers. I realized I had no choice but to come clean and told my parents everything that had happened up until now. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry for keeping quiet until now. It's probably going to be called off.
Huh? What happened? Why is it going to be called off?
My parents' surprise was beyond ordinary. I explained everything about Eugene's parents, his change in attitude, and his treatment towards me. My parents sympathized with my painful feelings.
They're selfish people, aren't they? Absolutely.
They showed understanding and hugged me.
If it's going to be called off, it's better to have a proper discussion about it. Yes, it's good to know things before getting married.
With the words of my parents, the tension that had been building up until now suddenly released, as if a thread had snapped in my shoulders. Then a large tear rolled down my cheek.
Nadia, there are plenty of men in the world. Don't worry about it.
With my mother's encouragement, I somehow managed to regain my spirits. For me, the broken engagement isn't all that bad. Since I was hesitating about marriage, it's more like the right decision. Thinking that way lightened my heart, but at the same time, anger toward Eugene's family surged up within me. I couldn't let them, who had been making fun of us so much, get away with it. And then the day came to visit his parents' house. Eugene's parents greeted us with poker faces as if looking down on commoners. They didn't even offer tea or suggest sitting on cushions.
Nadia, please forget about the marriage discussion.
Eugene calmly began the conversation without any remorse. I was able to deal with the situation calmly as I had expected. I just watched Eugene without saying anything. Then Eugene's parents, as if pushing him forward, began to openly talk about how I was unsuitable for him, emphasizing that I wasn't fit for Kirby papers.
Nadia, someone who doesn't want to serve her husband like you is a bit...
We've come from a distinguished lineage since ancient times, so frankly, your daughter isn't...
My father, who had been silent until now, suddenly interrupted them and erupted into blazing anger.
What do you mean? Please speak clearly without beating around the bush.
Perhaps they did not like this attitude, but their expressions suddenly changed into fierce glares.
Don't you understand unless I say it clearly, you pauper?
We won't allow a marriage with a commoner from the countryside.
How dare they use such filthy language in public? I was beyond angry. I was utterly disgusted. Even my parents sighed and exchanged glances. Talking anymore would be pointless. I realized that. I see. In that case, I'll go back. Nadia, let's go home. That's right. Upon my father's instruction, I stood up. As I was leaving, Eugene, I hope you won't regret this. I left with those parting words. Then about 2 weeks later, I received a call from Eugene's parents to my parents' house. Eugene's father sounded flustered. What's going on? He confronted my father. What do you mean? You don't want to be associated with the poor, right? I kindly ask that you don't renew the contract for the land we're renting to you next time. What did you say? To think that a big company like Kirby would associate with poor folks like us from the countryside? I apologize to the esteemed Kirby. My father runs a real estate company. He has a wide range of clients, including many companies. One of them is Kirby Papers, the parking lot for employees of Kirby Papers factory, approximately for 100 cars, along with a portion of the factory premises, is owned by my father. If that contract is broken, Kirby Papers' operation would come to a halt. Eugene's father's panicked reaction was to be expected. Why didn't Eugene's father properly remember my father, who's their business partner? He's unfit as a businessman. We can't afford such a sudden change. If such a thing were to happen, the company wouldn't be able to operate. We're also running a business, you see. Because there's a possibility we won't be able to collect the land rent, we can't lease it to you. What do you mean? We've been paying the land rent properly, haven't we? You'll understand eventually. Anyway, the deadline is the end of next month. Since there's over 2 months, you should look for a new place. Eugene's father was speechless at my father's logical response. I will never forgive you for insulting my daughter. My father said this and hung up the phone. A few days later, the tax authorities conducted an inspection at Kirby Papers and the president's residence. There were suspicions of tax evasion, and it was completely true. Although Eugene's family bought the koi fish and cars with company money, they were all registered under the name of the president, not the company. They had been pocketing the company's profits without permission. The suspicions were tax evasion and embezzlement. Although they managed to escape criminal liability, they ended up paying nearly $10 million in back taxes, penalties, and interest. My family meticulously discussed how we would seek revenge against them. The land owned by my father, which is leased to Kirby Papers, is a crucial location that supports their operation. I bought a car with company money. From Eugene's story, I detected the smell of tax evasion. About terminating the land contract, after careful consultation with a lawyer, we reported the suspicion of tax evasion to the tax authorities. It could be said that it was a revenge plot conceived precisely because I was in charge of the company's accounting. It later became apparent that Eugene's father was rumored to be a lousy president. Although he inherited the company his grandfather started, he lacked both management skills and knowledge, continuing the reckless management as a typical second-generation president. And then the fatal scandal of tax evasion came to light. The company's condition deteriorated rapidly, facing terminated contracts and a mass exodus of employees, and the management seemed to be in shambles. My father anticipated this outcome and terminated the deal early. Amidst such turmoil, I received a call from Eugene. I thought it must be an apology call, but to my surprise, it was a request to reconcile. Hey, Nadia, can we start over? Huh? What are you saying now? Come on, please. My family's in serious trouble right now. Please, help me out. It's laughable. Asking a poor person like me for help, what's the point? I've even quit my job, and if things continue like this, I might end up on the streets. At least can't you ask your dad if we can borrow the land temporarily? It's impossible. My father isn't running a charity, you know. I coldly pushed him away. After that, while Kirby Papers managed to avoid bankruptcy, they were refused loans from banks, and they've been barely scraping by. Still, to fall into decline so easily, it's clear they didn't manage things well, and Eugene's family didn't have any ideas to fix it.
They're a family that relies on their grandfather's money and thinks they're better than everyone else. I want to see what happens in the end. Since then, I've completely cut off contact with Eugene. I didn't want to be begged, and above all, I wanted to forget quickly. And now I've started dating a new man I recently met. He's kind and respects others, a wonderful person. There are plenty of men in the world. I remember my mother's words.
Nadia, would you consider being in a relationship with me, with marriage in mind?
A happy confession from him. I'm slightly wary of the word marriage, but he didn't say anything and just hugged me. From now on, I want to be with him and be happy together.
My mother-in-law's bullying on Christmas Eve made me feel down, but then my brother-in-law's wife exclaimed,
My name is Nicole. I am 30 years old and have been married for 5 years now. I met my husband Oscar at my old job. When we got married, I quit and began working part-time. Oscar is a very calm person. I've never seen him get mad, not even once. At work, he would never get angry or blame his colleagues, even if they made mistakes. He would instead level-headedly teach them how to do better. To make it clear, I was the colleague who would make mistakes. There was one time that I was sure I was going to get fired. If Oscar wasn't there, I probably would have been. I totally fell for him. A fond memory of ours as a couple is when he suddenly confessed to me in front of all our colleagues when we went out to drink together. That's a lie. That's part of our dark history. When I remember that moment, I want to curl up in a ball from embarrassment. But anyway, we have a great relationship. We don't have kids yet, but we're working at it. Since I'm in my 30s, I've been going to fertility checkups to make sure everything is okay. We live a very happy and calm married life. But of course, life can't always be that smooth sailing. Life has its ups and downs. One example of that is my adversary. Huh? Christmas? The holiday season was just around the corner. Every New Year's, Oscar and I pop a bottle of champagne and look back on the year, reflecting on all we've been through. End of the year cleaning? No. We keep our apartment pretty tidy usually, and it's not all that big, so there isn't really a need for that kind of major cleaning. I know some people like to greet the new year in a clean house, and I'm sure it feels refreshing. But doing all that in the winter cold? Oscar is on the same page as me about that, so it's fine, don't you think? I was thinking about what we should eat along with our champagne. The fish we got last year was quite bony and a pain to eat, so this year... When suddenly Oscar brought it up.
Oh, yeah. They said we should go over for 2 days.
Happy holidays. Unhappy visit to Oscar's parents' house. I shouldn't say that. They may be unimportant to me, but those are Oscar's treasured parents. I am grateful to them for raising the husband I love so much. They live a 1-hour drive away. Since it's not that close, we don't go back and forth often. But we still have to properly visit them at least once a year. Thanksgiving we spend with my family. Oscar's family wants us to go over to their house for Thanksgiving as well, but Oscar was firm. If we go to between both families for every holiday, we won't have any time to relax during our time off work. So Oscar clearly said Thanksgiving we would spend with my family and Christmas with his. My parents and Oscar's father accepted that. But there was one person who wouldn't accept that no matter what. She is the adversary I mentioned earlier, my mother-in-law. A wife's most hated person. There are some wives who get along with their mother-in-laws, but unfortunately that was not possible with mine. Just as I was feeling the holiday high, my mood immediately sunk. 2 days. Can't we go in the morning and return in the evening?
They said we should sleep over on Christmas Eve like usual.
Again?
My little brother got married, right? It'll be the first Christmas with him and his wife over, so my parents wanted us to have time to all relax together.
But it's always been like that, even before he got married. By the way, who said all that?
My mom?
Well, obviously. Oscar's father would always say that we should do as we wanted. Pushing our plans to the side for her own sake was my mother-in-law's special skill. But it's true, this will be the first Christmas since my brother-in-law Anthony got married. I want to talk to his wife, so even if I'm not a fan of this plan, I should go along with it.
So, what should we do?
Fine, let's spend the night. My mother-in-law loved harassing me. It seemed to energize her. When dealing with her, I've thought to myself on multiple occasions that it feels like I'm living in a soap opera. After Oscar and I got married and moved in together, we invited his parents over for a mini housewarming party. I planned on ordering delivery to get everyone in the party mood, but my mother-in-law told me I had to cook something myself. Oscar and his father said that ordering from a restaurant was fine, but having just gotten married, I didn't want to pick any fights with Oscar's mother from so early on. I'm not the best at cooking, but I did my best for the occasion. Oscar and his father complimented my cooking, but my mother-in-law made comments like, "How did you manage to only cook things I don't like? What's with the seasoning on this? Did you drop the salt shaker into the pot? Putting this much salt in the food, are you trying to kill us? This is the issue with young people these days. They don't even know how to cook properly. I feel bad for Oscar, who will have to eat this every day." She complained like this the entire time, but she ate absolutely everything I served her. She was already like that from the beginning, and every time I met her from then on was another barrage of nitpicking and hate. At first, her words genuinely hurt me, but now I've become skilled at ignoring her. But Anthony's wife isn't like that. I think her name was Renee. She's still a beginner at dealing with our mother-in-law from hell. They just got married recently, so I'm sure she hasn't had to deal with our mother-in-law yet. I'm worried about her. Anthony and Renee lived only a 10-minute walk or 4-minute bike ride from his parents. Imagining my mother-in-law intensely pedaling her bike and then entering Anthony and Renee's house without prior notice sent a shiver down my spine. It's possible. With my mother-in-law, it's totally possible. I hope I never have to deal with that myself. But I should stop with these negative thoughts. Anyway, since Renee probably isn't used to our mother-in-law yet, I need to protect her. My heart quietly burned with this mission. On Christmas Day,
Welcome.
"Oh, you're here." Yep, there it is. Spy for the moment she sees me. As usual. I kept my feelings inside and just smiled back. I've come to learn that's the best way to deal with her spite. Won't there ever come a day when I can stop dealing with it completely? I wish. But for now, my smile just seemed to anger her more. I sighed internally and we headed to the living room. Anthony and his wife had already arrived, and they were in the living room with Anthony and Oscar's father. And then it began.
"The holidays are getting happier and happier as our family grows,"
said my father-in-law.
Yeah, though we're hoping that some little ones will join our family next year.
"We plan to spend some time enjoying our life as newlyweds without kids."
You'll eventually regret that. When you finally try to have kids, you may find out your wife is infertile, like Nicole.
I've been tested, and I'm not infertile. Our failed attempts so far have just been a lack of luck.
"Nicole is completely healthy and not infertile at all,"
Oscar angrily spoke up.
We can't be so sure about that. She probably photoshopped the test report.
Who does she think I am? And how much free time does she think I have? Of course, her words hurt.
I would have never let you marry her if I had known she was infertile. You still have time to find someone new.
I was hurt, but my mother-in-law only continued. I became more and more gloomy. My father-in-law butt in.
"You're being rude. Our sons and their wives have all come together like this for the first time. You shouldn't cause a scene like this on Renee's first Christmas with us."
He tried to lighten the mood, but...
What are you saying? I want to make things clear precisely because it's the first time. Young people these days really don't respect their elders. We have much more life experience than them, so they should do as we say. We have to be strict on them. I shouldn't do this. They should all be grateful for what I'm going.
My mother-in-law contested. My father-in-law's attempt to lighten the mood failed.
And Nicole, Renee, what are you sitting around for? A wife's first job is to prepare refreshments for everyone. You married into her family, you aren't regular guests. Once you prepare refreshments, you need to clean the house, do the laundry, and then prepare dinner. There's a lot to do. Don't just sit around, get moving.
There it was, the mother-in-law combo attack. All of us had barely just arrived, and my mother-in-law was already trying to boss us around. Oscar, Anthony, and their father tried to stop her, but because they were all soft-spoken, she overpowered them. My mother-in-law wouldn't stop.
And clean the bathroom. Of course, tonight you two will shower last, after me.
And there it is. Every Christmas I've spent here, I've dealt with that. We have an order in which we have to take showers, starting with my father-in-law, the man of the house. That's a totally old-fashioned way of thinking, but what can you do? The order went my father-in-law first, then Oscar, Anthony, my mother-in-law, and finally me. I'm sure that now Renee will come after me. Well, it didn't make much of a difference who came first between Renee and I. The problem was my mother-in-law. I would wait for my turn patiently, but she just wouldn't take a shower. Waiting, she would take a shower at the last minute and then my turn would come. But they live in an old house with a boiler that can only warm up a certain amount of water per use, and my mother-in-law was adamant that the boiler should only be turned on once per day. Once it reached my turn, there was little hot water left, and whatever was left had already begun cooling down, and it was the middle of the winter. I once tried secretly turning the boiler on when it was my turn for a shower, but my mother-in-law stuck her head into the bathroom and shut it off. Because of this, I catch a cold every time we go over for Christmas. I end up spending the rest of the year doing my best to recuperate. Oscar and his father spoke up against that countless times, but she never stopped. So it's going to be the same this year, huh? Just as I was thinking I was sick and tired of this.
Wow!
A voice exclaimed. Turning around, I saw it was Anthony's wife, who had been silent until now. Her sparkling eyes were wide open.
Wow! Is this for real? Amazing, it's just like in that soap opera.
She lifted her hand to her mouth, which had dropped open in surprise. This was also sudden that everyone went, huh?
This is my first time seeing someone like this. So this is what people call a monster-in-law, huh? I thought this was just in dramas and movies. But it's more frustrating, anger-inducing, and annoying in real life. It makes me want to slap you. You really are amazing.
No, you're the amazing one for being able to say something like that so nonchalantly. That's what I thought inside, but I kept silent. Everyone else stayed quiet as well. The first person who spoke up was,
Who do you think you are?
Our mother-in-law.
What's with that attitude and those words? Is that something you can say to a mother? Saying you want to slap me?
Huh?
Come on. Come on? I'm teaching you what it means to be a wife, calling me a monster and saying I'm annoying? I'm teaching you basic social know-how. You should be grateful.
Our mother-in-law screamed, her face bright red. Renee then laughed slightly. Our mother-in-law was so surprised she seemed to not know what was going on.
Basic social know-how? What era are you living in? Are you living in the 21st century? Preparing refreshments, doing the laundry, and then cleaning? This is your house, not ours. The kitchen is woman's battleground. I was taught by parents to not enter another woman's kitchen without permission. You aren't just another woman. You married into our family.
I didn't marry you. I married Anthony.
What?
Wow, I'm really impressed. To think that mother-in-law like you exist in real life and not just in soap operas.
don't you think what you're doing is strange? You should reflect on yourself for a minute, because your actions are disgusting. Saying such shocking things so calmly, Renee had our mother-in-law at a loss for words. Her anger was so intense she probably couldn't express it in words. Seeing her trembling from anger, I struggled to hold back my laughter. After I was unable to control myself and let out a laugh, the men joined in as well. We all burst out in laughter. Once we began, we couldn't stop. Holding our bellies, we laughed and laughed until tears came from our eyes. What's so funny?
Seeing my mother-in-law's red face, I became even less able to control my laughter. Please stop, you're going to kill me. My cheeks hurt. Anthony, Oscar, my father-in-law, and I continued to laugh. My mother-in-law was trembling, face bright red. The look on Renee's face showed she didn't know what was going on. Eventually, the chaos finally died down and the sun started setting outside. I was tired out from laughing so much, but more than that, I was hungry. Oscar's mother was still telling Renee and I to cook dinner, but the strength in her voice had significantly decreased. But she was still persistent. Of course, Renee protested this.
Are you harassing us again? You're harassing us again, aren't you? Calling us over to your house and then forcing us to cook? You're trying to take advantage of us, aren't you?
Our mother-in-law went quiet. We decided to order delivery and Renee and I helped out with serving the meal. But of course, only to a degree. We helped set the table and clean up as well as do the dishes. That level of support was more than enough. Though our mother-in-law still was telling us to clean the house and do the laundry after we finished eating. She really was stubborn. Whenever she got tired of listening to our mother-in-law, Renee would snap back, making our mother-in-law go silent. It was my first time seeing her so quiet. I thought there was no end to her complaints. Of course, we didn't sleep over. When our mother-in-law mumbled complaints about this, Renee said,
Oh, you're still going on. Why don't you try watching a soap opera? I can find an old-fashioned wife and mother-in-law drama for you online. How about doing that once we leave tonight? I'm sure you'll enjoy it since you'll see many people exactly like you.
Our mother-in-law went silent again. At first, I thought Renee might have just let her first comments slip out on accident in the spur of the moment, but she seemed to really believe everything she said. Renee, you're really tough, I said, to which she smiled.
No, that's not true. I'm just young and impatient. If anything, I think you're the tough one for dealing with her bullying until now. There's no way you could deal with all that if you didn't really love Oscar. I have a lot to learn from you. Hearing those words, my heart felt lighter. I wanted to protect her, but she instead ended up protecting me. I was deeply grateful that she became my sister-in-law. I have a lot to learn from her as well. I want to become a stronger person. Above all, she taught me that I shouldn't be scared to talk back to my mother-in-law. She has all my gratitude. A few months after Christmas, when the flowers began blooming and the weather got warmer, I was pregnant. Oscar and I cried tears of joy. When we went to Oscar's parents' house to tell them the news, Pregnant? Oh, it's a boy, right? If you don't give birth to a proper heir for Oscar, I'll never forgive you.
The family isn't rich enough to require an heir, is it? If you talk like that, I won't let you meet your grandchild, you know. After clapping back like Renee would, Oscar's mother went silent. Oscar and I made eye contact and smiled at each other. I'm going to become a mother soon. I can't let my mother-in-law control me forever. In the future, when our child brings home the person they want to marry, there's no way I'll act like her. I'm grateful to both Renee and the baby in my belly for pushing me to become a stronger person. Stroking my belly softly, I looked outside the window. My eyes twinkled as I watched the wind blow flower petals into the air.